Hello and welcome to day 7. Today I'm up against turnjp, and turnjp is one of the front runners of the team, so I don't think this is going to go too well, but we'll see how it actually goes. You can see both teams are trying to contest this middle resource pretty early. As I've said before, that's a very common high-level strategy because it creates a lot of pressure for the enemy team. And because his shotgun moved the resource a little bit, unfortunately, my team just completely lost focus. That was really well executed on turnjp's part, and my foresight there did not pan out. But you can see I am trying to grab as many resources as possible, but his assault here is pressuring my assault. You can see I've changed my behavior a bit. I'm a little less bloodthirsty. I did manage to get that resource captured. If my assault had dropped the resource to fight, it would have already lost because basically whoever shoots first has the upper hand. And if you drop the resource to fight, but it causes you to shoot second, you're probably not going to be able to win. But that said, I have pretty much cleaned up my side of the map. And I just need, basically my shotgun needs to stop making poor decisions that it's currently making, and I need to grab this resource from the top side of the map. My shotgun did straighten itself out though, so that's nice, and that should be a secure resource, but I still need this one here. And with turnjp's shotgun taking the resource and my assault being a little blind as to what's going on, it's a pretty fair guess that he's gonna make a lot of progress with this resource. His entire team is basically trying to block here, but my entire team is trying to push. So really it just boils down to whoever has the better combat, and for better or worse, I have a machine gun, he does not. So my direct combat should be a little bit, at least statistically, advantageous, if not behavior-wise. But my machine gun is moving to interdict, which is a thing that I definitely tried to make it do often. And his sniper relieved pressure on my shotgun for a minute, and that's going to let my shotgun, relieve pressure on my machine gun for a minute. That let my machine gun regenerate its health, and my machine gun was able to push his assault off of the resource entirely. And now the machine gun's regenerating again. This should be enough to let the shotgun drop the resource. And now that my bots were destroyed and are coming back, I have comparable health to him, for the most part. And that's going to put the combat on a much more even footing. You can see my bot's trying to prioritize getting him to drop the resource, which did seem to work, but I need to move this resource away from this base. There's still 2 minutes left, a lot can still happen. But so far, I think turnjp is pretty confidently in the lead. Yeah, you can see his shotgun isn't overly willing to drop the resource either. You really have to convince it to do so. Because it'll do that where it drops the resource, backs up for a second, and then tries to pick the resource up again. It's done that a few times, and it's worked out fairly well for him. His shotgun is very tenacious about grabbing resources, whereas the rest of his bots are much more inclined to fight. Which seems like a pretty solid choice. I don't know how his actual shotgun's combat AI is, so it might just be that his shotgun's combat AI is kind of weak, like mine, and therefore he chose to have his shotgun prioritize resource movement instead of combat. But I do have him pushed up against the wall, but I can't get to the resource because it's in the middle of his bots and in the middle of his spawn. So with 45 seconds on the clock, this one's probably going to be a tie. I would have to basically wipe out his entire team at this point in order to even get to that resource. And with how combat's been going, I don't think his team is going to be able to get through mine. Yes, his shotgun, again, grabbed the resource and is retreating toward the wall, which basically helps me win the fight because all of the fighting is 2 versus 3, or 3 versus 4. But he did manage to clear out all of my machine gun and my assault. but he's still having a hard time actually getting anywhere with the resource. He is approaching the base. I think if there were another 30 seconds on the clock, he would have won. Yeah, his shotgun's pretty much uncontested. But it did take him too long to get there, and so there will be a tiebreaker. So I will see you there. So here we have collection again, because the first match tied. And this map layout and resource layout is very different. But let's see how we get on. Again, rushing the middle. If there was a tie in a round, it creates a new match. I'm not sure if I mentioned it. But in the new match, it deploys the exact same AIs. And so you can see here, his shotgun managed to grab that middle resource. And unfortunately, my bots don't do anything particularly smart about how they handle that situation. So they all immediately went into their, well, the middle resource is settled, even though it was very much anyone's game. But my shotgun down here is isolated. I don't think it's going to go well for the shotgun, but that said, they are very mobile, and he is prioritizing his own resource grabbing. My assault did manage to grab a resource, and it looks like it's going to try and grab another one. Yep, and he's going to get away with it. I don't think turnjp has what it would take there to stop it, basically because the assault was just so far away. But my machine gun and my sniper are doing an excellent job of focusing fire and, you know, securing kills to open up space as opposed to dispersing their pressure among the enemy. But my assault looks like it's going to try and make off with another resource. For one thing that's really nice about this, from my perspective, is that in order for him to move any resources, he has to kind of deal with pressure from my bots, and my assault, or my shotgun, is down there getting itself hammered into the wall, which is pretty great. But in order for him to move resources from these three in the middle, he has to deal with the pressure from my machine gun and from my sniper, which is a good thing for me, more or less, because that means that I have a better chance of making him drop resources. Meanwhile, my assault, you can see, is trying its hardest to move a resource, but having a hard time with it. The shotgun did take it and is going to relieve the assault. My assault AI, as I mentioned before, is much more capable than my shotgun. So generally speaking, I prefer for my shotguns to carry, though my assault is more than willing to do so as well. But that said, he has both resources on his bots, and both of them are in a secure position. So it looks like turnjp is going to take the collection match. So good game. Up next we have Domination. You can see this is a three-base domination map with a force field in the middle. Three-base domination maps are usually pretty questionable with my AI. They work out a lot better for me if the bases themselves are in a line as opposed to a triangle. So I'm not real confident in my AI going into this, but we'll see how it goes. I've been surprised before. And you can see turnjp does have some force field stuff. So if he takes this middle force field, like the shotgun in there is not that big of a deal, because essentially you would basically have to suicide yourself onto the shotgun for it to really be a problem. But if he were to put a machine gun in there, that could be a significant issue. And something tells me we already saw the machine gun approaching the force field, so there's a very good chance that that's going to happen. And I did manage to ward off his machine gun for now. Even his snipers are willing to take that force field. That's interesting. Basically every bot on his team is willing to take the force field. I don't know that the shotgun's taking it is a great idea. I do have some counter force field logic, but putting a sniper or a shotgun in a force field is pretty dangerous. And I often criticize force fields in Elimination, calling them a death trap and things like that. But in Domination, staying in the force field until death is just fine because it provides a lot of extra effective health on the bot. And in Domination, having the bot survive isn't critical. It's more important. It's a good thing to keep the enemy occupied for as long as possible, but you don't actually have to worry about your bots dying because they just respawn pretty quickly. And now we can see turnjp 2 minutes into the match. turnjp has this very small point lead, but more important than that, he has a huge positional advantage. He has complete control over the middle and control over all 3 bases. So unless something changes quick, I don't think I'm going to be able to come back from this. You can see the machine guns holding the force field in the middle being a significant problem, as my snipers are falling for it. My snipers will win this fight eventually against this machine gun in the force field, but eventually is the problem. I need them to do something useful now, and they're not doing it because of the force field machine gun. So the score, I will say, is staying a lot closer than I anticipated so far. Despite having him 3-cap, because his bots are spending a lot of time moving around between the bases as opposed to standing on them, he didn't actually score all that many points, which is going to create something of an opportunity for me to make a comeback. But that said, he is going to 3-cap me again, and that's rough, and I don't think he's managed to basically 3-cap me twice now on this map, and I don't think I'm going to be able to recover from that as the point lead just continues to grow and his control over the central area just improves over time. And you can see my snipers still falling for the machine gun trap. I'm trying to move in with my machine guns on the side here, but he's got too much on this base for my machine guns to really deal with, especially since they're coming in piecemeal. There's not really any way I'm aware of to fix that. I just lost the combat, and as a result got 3-capped. He's now up 30 points with 30 seconds on the clock, so that's as good as match. So good game, JP, and JP is going to take the series. And there it is. But we do still get to watch Elimination, so I will see you there. So now we have the Elimination match. And you can see here, turnjp is opting for 4 assaults, 2 snipers, 2 shotguns, which is a fairly mobile composition. You lose out on the heavy combat presence of the machine guns, obviously, but it does allow a bit more fluidity and faster, or a more aggressive style of gameplay. And you can see a lot of his bots trying to close in quite a bit. The shotguns in particular, you can see the shotgun on the bottom moving into close range, but it's moving into close range on a machine gun, which, even though shotguns are very devastating, even in close range, they don't do particularly well against machine guns. While my bots, you can see, are preferring to fight at longer ranges and to focus targets more effectively. And I'm keeping quite a bit of pressure down here. The bottom side, I think what they're doing is, I think he has local advantage detection, so he's noticed that he has 4 bots down here, whereas I have 2 bots down here. So his bots are trying to push, but what they don't realize is that they're still well within range of the rest of my bots toward the middle. And as a result, he doesn't have as much of an advantage as he might think, at least based on the number of bots. But he is managing to push the machine gun and the sniper back. However, this could be trouble for him. If he pushes too far, he's going to position himself in such a way that he can't... Oh, and there it is. My sniper killed one of his shotguns, and that's going to relieve quite a bit of pressure down here on the bottom, because he's got his shotguns running back and forth, trying to look for an opportunity to get into close range. But with, as I've mentioned before, one shotgun is fairly dangerous, but two shotguns is a hunter-killer pack. But now that he's lost a shotgun, he can't do that anymore. And as he gets closer, he's going to find himself in a situation where he's going to get several attackers against his shotgun, and every time you see he goes in for close range, he ends up taking chip damage on his armor. And the shotgun does not have a lot of health to begin with. So taking any amount of chip damage to his armor is not great for the shotgun involved. And you can see I've taken out his second shotgun now. So it's still possible that he could make a comeback from this, but my bots have been showing rather good behavior so far. I've taken very minor chip damage across my entire team, and he's taken quite a bit of chip damage on some of his bots, and of course lost the two shotguns entirely. So unless he pulls off some kind of miracle, I don't think he's going to be able to defeat any of my bots at this point. Basically, the idea is when he had 8 bots, he did this much damage to the machine gun. So now that he has 6 bots, odds are he's not going to be able to do a whole lot of damage, especially since a lot of his damage came as a distraction from the shotguns. And you can see I'm very steadily, not quickly, but steadily pushing him back toward this corner. If I get him in this corner and he tries to retreat again, then all of his bots are just going to get mowed down. And so far I've just been, you can watch my bots just steadily walking forward, firing a few times and then walking forward again. The inexorable march of the Terminators. But for better or worse, there's not too much to say. His bots are jostling around. One of the problems with being put on the defensive in the first case is that one of the problems in the first place is that if your bots are put on the defensive, then they tend to jumble up like that, and when that happens, they end up kind of pushing each other around and getting in each other's way, and that ends up taking more damage than necessary. So one of the things I emphasize is retreating effectively, because you obviously can't not retreat. If you choose not to retreat, then you're going to lose bots very quickly. But more than that is to pressure bots and force them into retreating. So you'll notice a lot of the time my bots are shuffling their targets pretty often because of all the jostling that's happened. But many of the times my bots will end up focusing on one very specific target. And whenever that happens, generally shortly after, their bot retreats. And that's a thing that I try to shoot for. I did get him up against the wall, but I didn't quite have enough time to kill all of his bots. But that said, turnjp takes the series, so congratulations.